Yeah, what's going on, party people? The place to be. I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city. Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Hope everybody's doing well. Everybody's staying safe, exercising social distancing. And what better way to exercise that but via the interwebs? I have with me today a very good friend of mine, more importantly, a fellow brother in Christ, Grammy Award winner, and today's actually a very special day for him, and we'll get into that in a minute. So say what's up to the people, my man. Speech, what's good?
What's up, fam? What's up?
What's going on, man?
Doing good, man. Doing real good.
That's good. That's good. We've done a few pre-recorded joints, and I think it was best, that we take this one all the way live for the party people. You know what I mean? I know we were supposed to hook up yesterday, but life intervenes when it wants. But I think it's interesting that we're doing it today because today's kind of a historical day for you as an artist, is it not?
It is, yeah. I was telling you backstage that today is the anniversary. I think it was 28 years ago that we dropped 3 years, 5 months, 2 days in the life of. So on this very moment, this very day, it dropped. And obviously it changed my life and it changed the group's life and our trajectory ever since. And I never knew it. That's the part I was telling you. I never know this date until fans tell me. So like fans will get online and remind me or remind the world too that the album dropped today. And it's always like, wow.
That's crazy.
It's a beautiful thing.
And how many years has it been now?
I think it's 28. I think it's 28 years.
Wow, 28 years. That's crazy.
Isn't
so you're old. You're an old man.
Yeah. That is true.
We could officially say you're an OG, right? So
I'm an OG without a question.
I didn't realize some quick trivia. You guys are the first hip hop group to win Best New Artist. Is that true?
Yeah,
that's
first
crazy.
Hip hop crew to win Best New Artist. Back when we dropped music, the first album, hip hop wasn't fully accepted, and it still really isn't. And so there was a lot of controversy surrounding whether or not they would air awards of hip hop music on live.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
Hip hop artists could become Best New Artists too. Hip hop has been sort of a stepchild throughout its history, and so it was a pretty major thing. Lauren, as a solo artist, nabbed it in the years after that. Yeah,
that's crazy. So I mean, again, not to gas you, right? But you have artists, then you have artists who are successful, then you have pioneers, right? You just being the first hip hop group to win Best New Artist. Knowing that when other artists are interviewed and they're asked who are your influences, and your name and your group comes up in their response, and really just setting the trend for being the quote unquote conscious rapper like that. How's it feel having that weight on your shoulders, knowing that you are an actual pioneer in the genre?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those scenarios where it's the cards that was dealt to you. Because when I was first writing the music, you definitely want people to be inspired by the music. You definitely want the music to make an impact. And so I'll back up a little bit, bro. Like, I grew up in a household where my mother and father both were actors, the largest Black newspaper. Still to this day, it's called the Milwaukee Community Journal. And so at the breakfast table, we would be talking about issues that affected our people. And so that was a very much big thing. And so when Arrested Development came out, that was also my mission. Like, I had finally gotten to the place in my life where I realized that I wanted to do something more than just rhyme and more than just make beats. I wanted to make an impact. And so when it was impactful, that was the hope in the first place. And so now, years later, as it becomes more of like a folklore, you know what I mean? Like, when you look back at it, it's like people do look at that moment in their life, a lot of fans of the music, and remember what it meant for them the first time they heard Tennessee, or the first time
Right.
they heard People Every Day, or Mr. Wendell, or Revolution, or whatever. So it's now part of my DNA too now, because it's like I've gotten so many amazing and personal stories. I mean, people really, music is a powerful thing, man. Like I've met people in Dubai who first heard the album when they were in South Africa, and they were working with a tribe with lack of water issues, and they were trying to hear music that was going to keep them motivated to not give up, because to getting the clean water. So I mean, it's like stories like that, not just like, yo, I love your beats, I love your rhymes. You know what I'm saying? So it's the type of blessing that you you definitely hope for as an artist, and when you get that opportunity, it's mind blowing, and it lets me know God is very real.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of God, it's a good segue. You have a certain sonic palette, you have a certain aesthetic that it doesn't take too long to realize your affinity for Africa, right? And all things African, and the whole Pan-African phenomena and culture. And, you're definitely an ambassador and statesman when it comes to the motherland, And because of that, people who are like-minded, who have a similar aesthetic and sonic palette, they're going to gravitate towards you, right? And when you have these talks with these type of people, and they come to find out that you actually are a disciple of Jesus, right? What has been the response? And if you have any interesting stories, please feel free to share that as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest misconceptions about consciousness is that, and Black consciousness in particular, is that they can't coexist with Christianity. And what's funny about that is I actually get why. I get why people have the misconception, because most people's introduction to Christianity is based on a false premise in the first place. So a lot of people's religious experience with Christianity has been less than ideal. And then especially as you start to get older and start to go through deeper personal things, it starts to get less and less rewarding, the way it's being presented in this country in particular. And it also starts to become less and less powerful as you look at the lifestyles of those proclaiming to be Christian. And so I know for me, it thoroughly disgusts me to get on television, and I mean disgust me, to see prosperity preachers, for instance, using the name of Jesus or God and taking advantage of people's desperation and people's feelings of pain, and using that to gouge or gorge money from them. Or people who claim to heal or claim to be able to heal you, at their service, and using the desperation of your sickness or illness to their gain in the name of the gospel. Or people that, talk about giving blessings. If you donate this money, they'll bless the television. And so much more. I mean, all the way down to preachers who will prey on boys, or priests who prey on boys, or preachers who prey on women in the world or in the congregation. All the way down to all of these things. These things disgust me. And so I can only imagine that if I was one of those people, or even politically, people who claim to be Christian and yet despise the poor, or favor the rich, or forgive the wrongdoings of other Christians that are blatantly wrongdoing, and yet be so hardlined on other people who have done wrong, being
Absolutely
judgmental, being arrogant, selfishness. So I get it. It's an unfortunate fact that anything that humans touch has the potential to be deeply perverted and taken deeply out of context. And yet, the way this world works is people still can actually say, even if they are not following the doctrine of the Bible whatsoever. So someone that doesn't know how far these people that I'm mentioning, these types of people I'm mentioning, how far they are from true Christianity, I don't blame them for having a deep disgust and a deep hatred for what they see. I don't blame it. So to answer your question, I know that was very long, but I wanted to be specific because what tends to happen, to answer your question directly now, is that people simply think, wow, I thought he was smart, but he's just not smart. You know, he's just, dude, he's not as conscious as I thought he was. That's what their perception is. And so they say all types of, to be honest, offensive things.
Wow.
But they just don't get it, you know, and that anybody that's conscious or woke would never choose. Again, it's for those reasons that I just mentioned.
Right. Hey, bro, can you do me a quick favor? Can you come out and come back into the live? Because you're kind of, the people are saying they can't really hear you. You sound kind of robotic. Is there any way you could just come back in?
I don't know how to do it. So just teach me how to do it. Okay, so leave and then come back?
Yeah, that might just fix it. Yeah.
Let me see.
All right. What's going on, everybody? We're going to wait for Speech to come back to see if we can get things a little bit more situated. Peace to Carmel Crunk, Street Culture Media. We got, is it Michelle DeVilliers? I'm probably butchering it. I'm sorry. What up, D New? I saw my man D Fairs in the building. We got my man Vocab. You know, we got Beatrice. We got Word Assassin. What's good? What's good? You know, we got my man SOC in the building. You know, I'm glad everybody could be here right now. This is great. Let's see if this helps. Hold on. All right. So let's see. Say something to the people. Speech.
You want to hear me now?
Yeah. It's a little choppy, but you know, it is what it is. You know.
Let me see. You know, I wish I could do it on my computer. It probably would be better.
That would be actually a whole lot better if you could. How long would that take?
I'm trying to think how I could get, for some reason, my phone text. I tell you what you should do. Send it to my email. You have my email.
Okay. Yes. Well,
send it to my email, and let's keep talking until I get it, and then I'll tell you, and I'll switch over.
All right. All right. Cool. Glad everybody's still here. If you haven't, please share the link. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, yeah, I got it. All right. All right.
I do want to answer some of the people's comments too. So when we get into
we're definitely gonna get into that. Absolutely. Yeah. I was hoping you say that. All right, I just sent it to you, bro.
Yeah. You just sent it via email?
Yes, sir.
Yep, I see it, brother. I see it. Let's see if I can get it in there this way.
All right, cool.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do it this way, bro.
All right, so come out of this one then.
Okay.
Because I see. Okay, let me see here. All right. I think it's a little better. Let's say, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Say something. I can't hear you at all, bro. Nothing. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay. Cannot hear you whatsoever. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, sir. Okay.
Word up.
All right. All right. Cool. So yeah, so we're gonna look at a couple of things. I definitely want your response to them. So I'm gonna actually share my screen real quick. All right. Uh-huh. Okay. Ready. All right, let me just make sure everybody can see that. Everybody, yeah, we good. Cool. All right, so this is from Mr. Paul Scott. It's from an article called "Losing My Religion." You do? Okay. Has the black church failed?
Paul is a really, let's just say he's a really cool guy. Yeah, we've sat down and had lunch together. We've known each other for many years.
Oh, nice, nice. Of course you would.
Yeah.
Well, I got a quote from his article. It says that there is a disconnect between the black church and the suffering masses of black people, especially the youth. Would you agree with that statement?
I think that that's a very broad statement. It depends on what era you're talking about, because first of all, really there should be no such thing as the black church. But I do understand what he's speaking about, because the church that Jesus is the head of, there is not necessarily a black version and a white version in the spiritual sense of the word church.
Right.
We're all supposed to be serving Jesus together. But from a practical sense, I do understand that there's churches that are primarily black or all black and churches that are primarily white. Historically, there's actually been a serious connection between the church and the freedom movement of black people.
Right.
Especially black people within in black churches. Historically, not just the civil rights movement. I'm talking about during the era of enslavement, churches were very involved in meetings to strive to gain freedom, in organizing and addressing the particular issues of the black community. Many of our most celebrated heroes, and I know that Paul Scott would agree with this, I think he would, comes from a disciple of Jesus inspiration. So people like Marcus Garvey, people like Nat Turner, and so many other abolitionists and movement activists were inspired through scripture to pursue freedom. So there is that aspect of it. And even today, some churches are very involved. I forget the brother's name. He's from Carolina right now. He does an excellent job at mixing what the scriptures say with the realities of today, and in particular, how it affects black people. So there is shining examples of people who are able to understand how those scriptures clearly relate to our predicament as black people and as Americans, or even as just world citizens, seeing the connection between godliness and the situation of an oppressed or marginalized people, and seeing those things interconnect and interact in very natural, scriptural, spiritual ways. So it's not even just black people. Historically, there's been many whites who have been some of the leading abolitionists, some of the most helpful Underground Railroad and other freedom passages. They were some of the most helpful allies
Yeah.
and even sometimes starting those various situations because of their spiritual belief
Right.
of the Bible and of Jesus and God. So Jesus speaks a whole lot in the scriptures about freedom and about enslavement. The difference between what the world preaches is that Jesus says we're all enslaved, every single human being. So we're either enslaved to sin, which we can relate easily to racism and white supremacy as being one of those sins, or we're slaves to God, which is righteousness and striving to be followers and obedient of God. So we're slaves to one or the other, all of us on the planet Earth, no matter who we are. So
No, absolutely.
I don't think it's a total correct thing. But again, I do understand where he can say that, because there's obviously many churches, and including those in the Black community, that are disconnected from the suffering of the people around them, which from what I read in the scriptures is opposite of what the church should be. So, and what Jesus was as he walked this earth. So yeah, I do understand where he's coming from to some extent. And at the same time, you know, he can't, if you research a lot of the origins of many of the great movements that we've all benefited from, everyone.
Right.
They come from, some of them, many of them come from a Christian or disciple of Jesus inspiration and root.
Oh, absolutely. Here's another quote from an article I would like you to have your 2 cents in. This is from Black Christians Are Leaving the Church. Here's Why by Tamela Caesar. Do you know her?
No, not offhand.
Okay. And the quote here is, in recent years, I've had several conversations with Christian friends about people we know who have left the church and denounced their faith. In almost all instances, these people shared a desire to know who their ancestors were. They begun questioning not only their own backgrounds, but the roots of their own Christian faith. This is something referred to as being woke, i.e., waking up to the truth, believing that the only reason why they are Christians was because the faith was used as a tool to enslave their ancestors, and that their cultural religion wasn't Christianity, but rather African spiritualism. Now, I'm sure you hear this said to you almost all the time. So
I do. Yeah, I do. So again, what I think makes these comments so potent to people that read them is because they have some truth in them. It's not categorically false. And at the same time, in my opinion, I would challenge some of it. Right. So I'm going to read, I'm glad you put the quote up so I can remember what she said. But when it says that many Christian friends have left the church and denounced the faith, and in almost all instances, they shared a desire to know their ancestors. I agree with that. I think that all human beings and all people of different cultures should understand their ancestry and understand the power and the purpose and the history of their people. White people have that by default because of the supremacy efforts that were led hundreds of years ago.
Right.
And they don't even know it. So white people don't even think of it. Oh, I know my white history because of this. They think it's just world history. Most people who are educated know about white history. It's just, so that's what I mean by ancestors as well, connecting the two. They know about white history by default. So it's very simple for us to see that as normal. And so blacks see it as a void for us, rightfully so, because there is a huge void in understanding our ancestry, not just in a spiritual sense, but in a physical sense and historical sense of what they accomplished, what they contributed to this world that we're living in. And so the church has done, in general, the churches of all different colors have done a bad job at being different than the world in that regard. Meaning the world, we know why they're keeping Black history from most of the population. It's because of a white supremacist campaign and propaganda campaign that's been happening for hundreds of years. But the church needs to be opposite of what the world does. The church needs to have its own sense of righteousness and justice. And so I do understand the frustration that the church hasn't done its job in helping to acknowledge the ancestors and what they have accomplished. But having said that, as I said earlier, there are many churches that do a good job in acknowledging the ancestors. Then her quote said they began questioning not only their own backgrounds, but the roots of their Christian faith. I get that too, only because we are taught to believe that Christianity comes from whites and Europeans, when in truth, it's the furthest thing from the truth. It's literally the difference between white and black. It's the furthest, it's polar opposite than that. Christianity is a thoroughly Middle Eastern, not Western religion. Right. As far as its origins, I should say. It's a world religion as far as God wanting people to understand his movement and his son and his love. But it is a Middle Eastern origin and not Western origin, like literally not at all. And then there's that the Hebrews, and I don't share this yet. I'm learning about this whole movement, but there was many that would say that the Hebrews were black in the first place. So these are things that I'll have to just learn more about as I talk to people like you and others. But that's and I know you already know about this, but that's a huge movement as well. All of that would contest, though, this idea that it's a European religion. And so I do want to say that. And I do know for a fact that some of the earliest examples of Christianity come from Africa as well.
Sure. Absolutely.
So the Bible talks about Ethiopia being a convert and doing amazing things from then on. So African roots within the early, centuries of Christianity as well. So yeah. So and then it says
actually we will be
Oh, then it says the only reason why Christians, the only reason why they are Christians was because the faith was used as a tool to enslave their ancestors. That part is true, right? It's not true that the only reason everybody's a Christian is because of that, but it is true that that happened. It's very true that Christianity was used as a tool to enslave people. And unfortunately, many blacks during the times of slavery came from another country, spoke different languages, and did not, in fact, it was against the law to learn how to read. So the ability to sit and read the scriptures on their own was not done by and large. I do find it interesting that those that did read the scriptures, people like Nat Turner, for instance, they did not find it as a catalyst to stay enslaved. Instead, by reading the scriptures, they found themselves compelled to fight for freedom and to do the opposite. Harriet Tubman was another example. All people that I deeply admire. In the midst of a world that accepted one way of life, which was blacks as inferior and whites as superior, people that read the scriptures, by and large, were the ones that questioned that reality that was all around them. If they looked to the left, right, front, or back, the reality was something that when they read the scriptures, they wanted to defy that reality. So I find that the scriptures shouldn't be used as a blame for passivity. Instead, maybe the pastors that are preaching maybe choice particular scriptures or a whole race of people historically that were using the scriptures for perverted reasons should be the blame, but not Christianity, in my opinion.
Of course, I agree with that. Now, when people usually bring up this is a very popular meme, how black people became Christian. I'm sure you've come across this in your timeline more than a few times, right?
I haven't, but I've seen that same basic point. Yeah.
Right. So with that being said, right, what I always like to tell people is, well, when you say Christianity was given to us from our slave masters, what I always ask them is, well, what do you mean by Christianity? Because we have to define terms if we're going to have any kind of, fruitful dialogue. So, when you break it down, right, the word Christ, Christos in the Greek is to anoint with olive oil properly, the anointed one. Jesus is the anointed one, right? Whereas the word, the suffix ity expresses a state or condition, right? So when you're actually saying Christianity, what you're saying that it's someone who is expressing a state or condition of the anointed one, right? So if that's the actual definition, so when people say, well, the slave masters gave us Christianity, it's like, well, were they themselves expressing a state or a condition of the anointed one? Obviously, no, they were not. So was that really Christianity? Right?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
what do you think of that?
I think that you hit it on the nose. I wouldn't have used those words because I didn't know it. You just taught me something that I've never seen, which is great. I love learning this. But
Oh, cool.
without a question, you know, people have perverted most things in the world, you know, whether it's Christianity or whether it's, for instance, the term Uncle Tom, where it has become known as the most defiled thing you could be called as a Black person. You're a sellout, when in truth, from the movie, was a hero for Black people. So you can see how over time things could become thoroughly perverted and even twisted upside down, so that by the time we get it, we've gotten this deeply perverted version of it in most instances. And so I think people should definitely keep in mind that those that say, you know, well, Christianity is what, you know, we were forced to adhere to because of slavery, that was from perverted minds and perverted hearts, but not from the scriptures itself.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we know that there is scriptures that talk about slavery, and it talks about remain a slave and be submissive to your master. But then there's also scriptures in the same holy book that say the opposite, meaning if you're a disciple of Jesus or if you're a Christian, I would rather you have your fellow Christian never be enslaved and let that man or woman become free and be equal to you. And the context of slavery at the time of the scriptures was 100% thoroughly different than the context that we witnessed during the Atlantic slave trade. So the Atlantic slave trade of Christianity was actually 100% unique than any slavery in the history of mankind. Way more brutal, strategic, and almost machine-like in its evil. Never seen before in the history of mankind, although slavery is evident from the beginnings of mankind. So slavery takes on different forms. In this particular slavery that we are referring to when we talk about slavery today, most of the time, it's a totally different thing. And so they used Christianity as a way to strive to, you know, submit us. However, we can learn different. I'm loving a lot of these comments. Like, you know, one of the people said the Bible was the only book we had, so we used it to help us. It doesn't mean that the book is ours. And I think ours would have to be defined in the sense of Africa is a huge continent with numerous countries and thousands of different religions and cultural backgrounds. So when you say ours, if you're referring to Black people, there is no particular book or religion that is ours. It would have to be adopted. It would have to be believed in. And so there is no particular one religion in Africa as well that is uniquely ours. It is based to traditions, tribes, countries, cultures. So Christianity, and the way I look at it, is I have chosen Christianity after having done research and understanding what God is striving to communicate to his creation. And I have chosen Christianity, and I strive to tell other people the joys in the good that it has brought me. I encourage other people to do the same thing. I don't encourage people to just become Christians because I say so. And I also, not even my own kids. And I also don't encourage people to become Christians based on some type of blind faith. It is based on study, understanding, and then a submission to. And I suggest that everybody do that. So if you're studying if you're presently studying Yoruba or some particular religion in Africa that has more of a emphasis on our ancestors, study that, learn that, and even use that to whatever degree that it can advance your personal spiritual life. But I also suggest to keep your mind open to Christianity for the exact same reason. I don't suggest people not study other things. I believe in studying. I think studying will help you to become convicted on whatever path you're taking, on its strengths and also where it still lacks. And I think that that's wise.
Right. I definitely want to wait for afterwards for Q&A, but I want to tackle this particular question straightway. Omar Rashid Yehuda says, okay, being Black Christians, is it safe to say that to be set apart by not celebrating European holidays? Well, I have a video in my channel talks about should we participate in holidays, right? And you could definitely check that out. I can't go into great detail, but the bottom line is it's about the intent and who are you worshiping. You know, a holiday is a special festival geared towards something, right? You have to have the intention to worship another deity, or else that doesn't work. Whether it be Krishna, whether it be Allah, like the intent has to be, I'm trying to have a relationship with that person via this festival. So most Christians, when they're celebrating Christmas or Easter, what is the intent of their actions? Because bunnies and Christmas trees and wreaths are not in itself inherently good or bad. They're objects. What you do with those objects can be good and bad. So I just want to get that out the way real quick.
I could not have. Can I just tap on
Go for it,
brother? The thing that I think our society, because even the meme you showed me a second ago accents what I'm about to say, and that is our society, unfortunately, is so based on simplicity that it misses depth. And so what you just said, and I agree, me and you agree on this, that we need to start adopting, as just human beings, we need to start adopting the depth of things. Right. So that means a couple sentences or one sentence. And by nature, I don't care what the one sentence is, it very likely is not going to really be able to address the issue it's trying to address. But it's really effective for quick and almost fast food like digestion of a topic, you know. So you might see a simple meme like that and somebody might say, oh, I get it, okay, good, I'm good. And it's not ever good. It's too vague, it doesn't go deep enough, and memes never do. And so I put them up, but they never accomplished the real goal. To me, it's something to wet your whistle and then let's go deeper. So when you were talking about holidays, European holidays, a lot of them are pagan holidays from various different cultures. And your intent, just like you said, is really the real point. What is your intentions? If you're just trying to have a little fun, I did this with my kids, right? So with my kids, we celebrated Christmas when they were really young, and we got gifts and so on. We did the Santa Claus thing. Some people say, nah, I never would do that. That's fine, and that's your choice. My choice was to do it because I remember it being some of the most fun times in my childhood. And it didn't leave me scarred when I found out that it was all, not true. And so I wanted to do that with my kids. It turned out my kids had an incredible time with that. However, they are under no misconception. White guy came through a chimney, that white people give them the best gifts of their life. They're under no perception of that, because we've had great conversations and talks about what was just a fun thing to do. And we didn't say that Santa was white anyway, but what was just a fun thing to do compared to as if we really believed in these particular types of things. Same with Easter. I mean, I don't personally celebrate a lot of these things, but it's not because of any particular deep conviction. It's just because I do see them as such a commercialized, hyper materialized time in life. So I don't personally celebrate them a lot, but for little kids, those that have children, many of you will be able to attest to the fact that, yeah, it works pretty well for kids and they love it.
Yeah.
They're very excited about Christmas morning. And at the end of the day, they knew that these things came from their moms and dads and family members, and they were deeply encouraged, and then they knew that they were deeply loved. So I just want to say that, yeah, I agree with what you said. I'm sorry I'd be so long-winded on these things, but I feel like
that's cool, man.
It's important to talk through it and really have a real conversation instead of just throwing ideas back and forth that are quick but not really deep in the
Absolutely.
truth.
I mean, yeah, I don't celebrate those particular holidays. Now, with that being said, if you want to give me a Christmas gift, I will gladly accept it and say thank you very much. You know what I mean? Yeah, but again, you know, it's when you was having Christmas with your kids, you wasn't teaching them to worship Saturnalia. Like that wasn't what's going on, right? So, and that was my point. But yeah, I just want to hit that real quick. But
and not at all. In fact,
yeah.
Just to say a little more on that, we also were teaching them the gifts of God. We were trying to, in teaching them the idea of giving from your heart without expecting something back. And we were also teaching them that God himself gives gifts, even to those that are quote unquote evil or bad, or to those that are quote unquote good. He gives gifts to everybody. Right. And he is an extremely giving creator. So we use that as a tool to teach about God's loving heart, just the heart of God.
Cool. Absolutely. So to get a little deeper with this idea of should blacks be Christians, well, let's look at some scriptures here. Acts 2, starting in verse 5. Now there were staying in Jerusalem God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment because each one heard their own language being spoken. Utterly amazed, they asked, aren't all these who are speaking Galileans? Then how is it that each of us hear them in our own native language? Parthians, Medes, and Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt, and the parts of Libya near Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Jews and converts to Judaism, Cretans and Arabs, we hear them declaring the wonders of God in our own tongues. Now, for many of us, we know what this is about. This is, you know, day of Pentecost, the beginning of the church. And when these apostles gained the spirit to speak in these languages, there were people from all over the world there. Specifically, for our intent and purposes, Egypt and parts of Libya near Cyrene. So with that being said, here's a quick map. As you see, Libya, Cyrene, and Egypt is very much part of the African continent. And the verse doesn't just say Jews, but it says converts to Judaism. Yeah. So there's a good chance that there are indigenous people from these regions who traveled to Jerusalem to worship God, who were African, right?
Very true.
But just in case that doesn't convince you, like, well, maybe those were other people from other nations that happen to be living in Egypt and Libya. And that could be true. But let's look at this scripture here, one that Speech actually alluded to earlier in Acts 8, starting in verse 26. Now an angel of the Lord said to Philip, rise and go toward the south to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. This is a desert place. And he rose and went. And there was an Ethiopian, a eunuch, a court official of Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who was in charge of all her treasure. He had come to Jerusalem to worship and was returning seated in his chariot when he was reading the prophet Isaiah. Now, the word Ethiopian here, a lot of times when we think Ethiopian, we think of the current nation that's called Ethiopia. That wasn't the case at this time. The word Ethiopian was used for anyone who was black. It actually means burnt face.
Exactly.
So this is not a white person we're talking about at all. This is an actual black person, like literally a burnt face person who was a court official of Candace, right? Now, right, and here's the actual part of Ethiopia that they're referring to here is actually Nubia, as you see it in the map. So it's deep in Africa. We're talking Africa. We're not talking the borderline between Egypt and Israel. We're talking Africa, okay? And it says here, it stretched from what is southern edge of what is Egypt to central Sudan today. Therefore, this Ethiopia was located in what is northern and central Sudan today and was northwest of today's Ethiopia. Right? Now, give us some more cultural background. Candace or Kendeke, right, wasn't a person's name, but the title given to the mother of the Nubian king, not unlike Pharaoh or Nesu. For the Egyptian ruler in Nubia, ancient Ethiopia, the job of managing the nation was given to the mother of the king, as it was considered too low a task for the king, who was thought to be the son of God. So this dude works for the queen mother of the king. This dude is high status.
Yeah.
He's a big dog, right? And because he's a eunuch, he was trusted. Yeah. Right. So as you see here, there's an ancient relief that's on the wall in Nubia. Black woman. He's like we're talking black. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not talking Drake, right? We're talking black. All right. Oh, before I get to that, let me get your view on this whole situation. I mean, I'm sure this is not new for you, but
well, actually, it is. A lot of this is new for me.
Okay, cool.
Which is great. Bro, I look at even the first part that you read, the first scripture you read, back some in Acts, I believe, and I want to just say to the people watching, all of these places are, at least to my knowledge, none of those places were based in Europe.
Right.
So
right.
all of these places were people of what we now call people of color. It was a very international, well, in America at least, we would think of it as an international religion as opposed to a national or European or Western religion. It just goes to show that the first day of the church looked very black, brown, and international as opposed to white and European. So I just want to say that. And I even think we need to be reminded of that as Western followers of the faith. So those that go to a church right now and just see how far, again, this concept of perversion, how far it has been perverted to think that it is something of a white religion, and also why it was perverted. I think it's so important to remember the context of white supremacy and how big of a role it has played in shaping the perceptions of all of us throughout the world, white, black, and every other race of people or culture of people. It has shaped our opinions, not only on Christianity, but almost everything. On history itself, it has shaped our opinions. So it's so important for us to just, again, go back to the truth and the purpose of all of these things. And that's what you effectively talked about. I love when apologists like yourself, urban apologists like yourself, start to break down some of these things. And when I say I learn it, I'm not ashamed of just being hip to it. I think there's so much we can learn in this regard. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad people are being, or at least me, I'm being introduced to some of that for the first time. I love it. It's good.
Well, yeah. Oh, thank you. But I mean, we just need to be equipped so that when people say that, we didn't have Christianity until slavery. Well, here we have first century attestation of a very black Nubian person of the upper echelon of the royal family becoming a Christian. Right. So a very well-to-do, he wasn't any, he was a servant in a sense, but he was in a servant, like saying the vice president is a servant. Right. That's what I mean by servant in this matter, and very well-to-do individual, African, right, who had his own copy of the scriptures, right, which was a big deal back then because everything was handwritten. So for him to have his own copy right then and there shows you that he's very well off, very important and very well off individual, right? So very early on, the first century, we're seeing an African making Jesus Lord. Now, let's fast forward.
Can I say something on that right quick, bro?
Sure. Go for it, brother. Go for it. Can't hear you.
Okay. I also want to say that. Oh, you can't hear me.
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Yes, sir.
I also want to say, brothers and sisters who are watching this, when we talk about the first century, this was pre the Atlantic slave trade. And so this idea of white people was not a concept. It is a very new concept by nature. And so the idea that there was dark people from Africa in the early scriptures, that wouldn't surprise anyone in the early days of this earth. It wouldn't surprise anyone in the first century that people were deeply of color and black. And we didn't even have terms like black people in a sense. You know, we had people of the burnt, but skin, but that was different than what we look at as black people or white people. These were very new concepts. And so more recent concepts, and because of slavery. And so as people were adopting new ways to worship the creator or to understand the meaning of life, they were looking at ideas from all around the world. And these religions of different cultures were swirling all around and coming up with different ideas, and people were worshiping different gods. And so I say all of this to say that Christianity is not known then as some type of white religion that Africans adopted even early. It's not that. It was a religion that was speaking about how to worship the creator of all people, just like some other religions were, and people were judging for themselves if it made sense to them, if they thought that it was powerful for them, and they made decisions to convert and become Christians. People like early century Paul and Peter and others their tasks was to strive to preach what this faith was about, what this path was about, and their job was to strive to show people that this is the legitimate way to worship God. This is the way that God himself wants us to worship him. And that's still I do just want to say that it wasn't a white-black sort of dynamic the way we know of it today.
I mean, a lot of it was nationalism, like what flag were you waving? What set were you claiming? Right. So
exactly right.
I mean, there was some colorism, but not the systemic form that we see today. Right. So
I agree.
But it was mostly, yeah, go ahead.
To bro. Me, the color, and I want to learn from you, bro, but the colorism that I'm aware of is whether or not you were out in the sun a lot could a lot of times mean you were a worker. You weren't richer because you had to work in the sun a lot. And somebody who was not as dark possibly had some type of indoor job, totally separate than the whole house, house slave, field slave, totally separate type of thing, but a similar concept of colorism. But what were you going to say? I know you have some things that I'm learning too. So.
No, that was great. I totally agree with that. I mean, that's actually a really good point. You don't want to look like somebody that gets their fingernails dirty, because that was beneath them. Right.
So. That was a human trait that still exists today. Like a lot of hip hop artists constantly brag about the fact that they're rich and that they got money. Those are traits that happen throughout time, so even back in the ancient times, there was people that bragged about the fact that they didn't have to work out in the sun. Maybe they had some type of job or nobility that allowed them to stay indoors more often. And the paler they were, having nothing to do with white people yet, the more pale they were had some type of significance from a richest standpoint, not even a white supremacy.
Right. You froze up, bro. You froze up. I don't know if you can hear me. You froze up. You just froze, bro. You just froze. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? You're gonna have to you're probably gonna have to X out and come back in. Which there he is.
There we are, bro. Sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good. So no, that's what's up. Yeah, I mean, even today, right? You see, even in the Asian community, when it's summertime, you'll see them walking around with parasols, with these umbrellas, and it's not raining, right? But it's to keep the sun from making their skin darker, because they also have issues with colorism as well.
The class,
class, right?
The class It's really a class system in a sense, disguised as colorism because of being out in the sun and not being out in the sun. Yeah.
Right. No, that's a great
And
point.
you'll see that in the book. You'll see that in the book of Song of Songs in the Bible, and many people will mistakenly think that it's talking.
You froze again, bro. And you was about to make a really great point. You just froze. Karma Crunk. No, I can't see Nate. I blocked Nate by mistake. I don't know how to unblock him. Can someone tell me how to unblock Nate? How do I go about doing that? Speech, you're gonna have to come back out, in and out again, bro. I don't know. Can't hear you, bro. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you're Wi-Fi or using a landline. But yeah, Nate, I'm sorry. Someone gotta like show me how to unblock him. I don't know how that happened. So me and Nate had never had beef. He's a good dude. You know what I mean? So we're just waiting for my man to come through again. Oh, there he is. Let me put him back in. Okay, everything all right there?
Yeah, bro. You know, I'm out in the country, and actually my internet usually works pretty good, but tonight it is tripping, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, it trips every once in a while, so sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, you're about to make a really great point about Song of Songs. Song of Songs.
Yeah, Song of Songs.
Okay, and that's why you freeze. That's deep. What's going on? You froze again, bro. This is great. So yeah, so after the show, maybe I got to talk with Nate so we could work through getting him back on. I don't know why I can't see him. So sabotage, exactly, Mr. Baker. It's the man. He don't want to hear this knowledge that we're dropping, son. You know what I mean? Sabotage. Okay, it says go to your creator studio. All right, I'll definitely do that later, D-New. MJ's funny. That brother in the woods avoiding the Rona. Yes, absolutely.
Sorry about that, bro. You know what it is? I found out.
Dodge that Rona.
I know, exactly. Try to dodge the Rona. You know what it is? It's like basically 73 degrees here, and it's just hot in my studio. So I had to turn the air on, and apparently my internet was tripping for that reason. So I hope it stays on now. We'll see what happens.
All right, so one more try. Song of Solomon. Take 3.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some scriptures that talk about color and talks about dark skin as if it's a bad thing in that scripture. And some people will mistakenly think it has to do with black and white. And again, it's that class thing. It's basically talking about this person is of such high standing class wise that they don't have to work out in the sun or what have you. So, right. It's that type of thing. So yeah, thanks for y'all for hanging with us on this conversation. I'm really loving like the people commenting. It's cool.
It's great. It's great. So what we're gonna do now, right? Since we were talking earlier about the slaves being taught this perverted form of Christianity, it'd be really great if we can hear it from their own perspective. And actually we can, because what's recorded is thousands and thousands of slave narratives, so that we get to hear from them, the slaves themselves, their own experience with Christianity. And what I want to do right now is share a couple of quotes from actual slaves during those times and get their perspective on how they saw Christianity. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to look at Adeline Cunningham, who was enslaved in Texas. Now, you're kind of in the South. Do you want to try doing a Southern accent and quote this real quick?
No, my wife would be great at this. She's from South Carolina. She's from the Gullah people.
Oh, wow.
I'm horrible at this.
All right.
No, I mean, if you don't mind, New Yorker,
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So She says, "No, sir, we never goes to church. Times we sneaks in the woods and prayed the Lord to make us free. And times one of the slaves got happy and made a noise that they heard at the big house. And then the overseer came and whipped us because we prayed the Lord to set us free."
Nice.
So we're seeing a slave talking about how they didn't go to church
Right.
at
Yeah.
all. And they had to
Yeah.
sneak and pray to God.
Wow.
So why would she have to sneak if the master is instilling Christianity on her?
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of interesting.
I think it's very interesting. I think what it does too is it gives the complexity of slave life. Like in this day and age, we look at.
Oh, did you freeze again? You froze again, ladies and gentlemen. You froze again.
Experience.
There he goes. Okay.
State. Every slave and every group of slaves, every slave and every group of slaves, every state had very differing experiences. And so I love these testimonies of actual people that were enslaved, because it gives us the breadth of the experience. So I love this.
Right. Here's another one. This is from Lit Young, who was enslaved in Mississippi and Texas. Says here, she built a nice church with glass windows and the brass cupola for the blacks, and a yellow man, light-skinned black man, preached to us. She had him preach how we was to obey our master and mercy if we want to go to heaven. But when she wasn't there, he came out with straight preaching from the Bible.
I love this, man. This is great.
So clearly they knew what was going on.
Yeah.
They were dumb. It's like when master's around, I gotta play the role, but when he's not there, I get busy with his Bible.
Right. I love that. And I think one of the things that reiterates is the fact that when anyone reads the scriptures for themselves, they don't come away with a docile spirit. In fact, the Bible makes it clear that the spirit of the Lord is not docile. It's not timid, but it's one of power and one of freedom. So the yearning to be free actually is enhanced when you read the scriptures for yourself. However, some people might preach like.
Froze again, bro. You froze up. See, it's COINTELPRO, son. They're trying to stop you. They're trying to stop you. I can't even hear you. Come on. You froze again, bro. Work it out. Hey. What's going on? Thank you, bro. Really appreciate it. Or miss, I don't know. Zuryab, I don't know which gender that would be. So, but thank you. Right? Don't let your right hand know what your left hand's doing. You know, got Miss Titus 2 in the building. It's the white man, bro. That's who's doing it. It's the white man. You know what I mean? So, wait, hold up. Are you back in? Yes. There you go. Say something, bro.
I'm right here, bro. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You know, this is crazy. I'm telling you, this never happens to this degree. So this is like something is trying to really get in there tonight. This is really
COINTELPRO. It's COINTELPRO.
It really is.
Bro.
Like,
they're after us right now.
Yeah, it is. It's like some type of thing is happening here that's really different. But I can hear you.
Good. All right. So I have another one here. Do I have another one? Let me see. Yes, this is from Claiborne Gatling, who was enslaved in Georgia. Before freedom, we always went to white churches on Sundays with pastors, but they never mentioned God. They always taught us to be good niggas and mind our misses and masters. Now, how do you have a church service but don't speak about God? How does that work?
Yeah. And it's sad, brother, but that's happening today a lot too, where you go into certain worship services. I hate to call them churches because that's even misleading.
Right.
We know that a church is not a building. It is a collective of actual people set apart to do the Lord's will. So that's what the church actually.
You need to say that again, because with the coronavirus and a lot of church buildings closing, people think the church is closing. Can you repeat that one more time, sir?
Yeah. So even the concept of churches is misleading today. It's another thing that has been perverted. So a church really is not a building. It is a people. The church is actually the people of God called out to do his will for a special purpose, to do his will. That is the actual church. So it can't close per se, and it doesn't have a location per se. It is a living organism. It's people. It's a collective of human beings that are worshiping him and representing him on this plane. So I love what they talked about, though, because in this quote, because even today you have numerous places that consider themselves to be places of worship, and they rarely, if ever, mention scriptures or mention God. I've seen people do sermons and they might have one scripture for the entire sermon. And not that that's against the rules, but I will say it may not be the best use of time when you're able to use so many examples that go across the Bible that can help give a more holistic view of what God's message to us is, and you only use one scripture. Sometimes I would have to question, what is that pastor's or preacher's intent if they don't mention God or Jesus or use a number of juicy scriptures to help give the holistic point of what God is striving to teach us as people. When people try to exclude that, which many churches, or like I said, churches is misunderstood, but I use it to try to connect with people. When many collectives do that, it's suspect to say the least.
Right. Absolutely. And let me see. Do I have one more here? I think so. Well, a lot of us know this quote from Mr. Frederick Douglass. I love the pure, peaceable, and impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slaveholding, women whipping, cradle plundering, partial and hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, I can see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity.
You know what I love about that? I do know.
So
yeah, and that was 1845, brother. So we could go to then 1945 and then go to 2000, which is where we're at now. And he was saying that back then. Right. And that to me goes back to the point we were saying earlier about digging deeper, because people who have this perception that Christianity and the things that he just said he hates are representative, or represent, I should say, Christianity, all they have to do is research. Because if you research, it becomes clear that no one of true belief believes that these things are representative of what the scriptures are teaching us. Right. Nobody who's read the scriptures with any detail would believe that. And Frederick Douglass, who I deeply admire, is one of those people that obviously made that clear way before me and you were thought of. Right. Way before we were thought of.
But again, here's a former slave. That's true. Here's again another slave, former slave, who understood the difference. He knew what Christianity was. Exactly. And it was very clear that these people who actually, quote unquote, owned them, what they were saying was not Christianity at all. And him,
go ahead.
Yeah. No. Well, him and other slaves, they all knew. Like nobody was sucking into this.
Yeah.
They knew what it was. But when the whip is on your back, what do you do?
Exactly.
Yeah, bro.
I will say that obviously some people were sucking into it, just like some people are suckered into various things today. But I agree with you that most weren't, and definitely nobody was who was able to understand and read the scriptures for themselves, which is what I really encourage everybody to do who wants to at the least, keep Christianity as something that they're willing to consider for wisdom. Read the scriptures for yourself. You know, I have a lot of friends who have years ago counted off Christianity, and they feel happy in other belief systems and things that make them feel happy. That's great. Do what you do. But I will suggest that just as I'm open to reading things from different belief systems to try to understand it, I would suggest to actually read the scriptures for what they are. And I have a feeling that if one does that, they surely will not come away with thinking that this deceitful, corrupt, slave-holding, women whipping, cradle plundering, partial and hypocritical Christianity is coming from those scriptures. Right. I don't think they'll come away with that conclusion.
Right, because the slaves didn't.
The slaves didn't.
The slaves didn't.
And the slaves were extremely intelligent people, just like we all are now. But they may not have understood proper English well, and they may not have been taught to read. But they were smart enough to have common sense to know this ain't what this scripture right here is talking about. This ain't what these holy scriptures are talking about. This is two different things. And they understood when somebody was deceitful and perverted in what they were trying to accomplish. Most of them understood that.
Right. Like nobody was being fooled here. There was no hoodwinking going on. They knew what it was and they knew what it wasn't, you know? So now, you know, if you guys seen the thumbnail for this video, you saw this image, right? Decolonize your theology, right? And the whole concept of that is we don't have to look at Christianity from a particular cultural lens. You know, I think a lot of turnoff for Black and brown folk is that not only do you have to follow Christianity, but you got to follow it in this particular style and aesthetic. You don't have to do that. You know, the way Europeans worship doesn't have to be the same way the African worships. We can both worship the same God, have the same ideology and theology, right? And the same heart, but how we express it can be different. And that's okay. You know, so for a lot of people, I think the issue isn't, when it comes to Christianity, it's more an issue of cultural imperialism as opposed to bad theology or a worldview that's not attainable. You know what I mean? So, but as a worldview, I got my T-shirt.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I got my T-shirt. Right. Started at $20. You can, you know, purchase that. It also comes in stickers, iPhone cases, mugs, wall art, notebooks, pillows, magnets, totes. Be great to see a certain, you know, Grammy Award winner wearing these shirts, but you know, no pressure. But yeah. So with that being said, brother, you may chime in.
I forgot what I was gonna say now, but I will get one of them shirts, bro. Those is nice, man. Congratulations on that.
Yes, sir.
I love it. I'll rock that. Like that would be like a perfect joint to rock at this, like at the perfect show. I'm gonna put that on and just
nice.
It's gonna be nice.
But yeah, so that was like the slides I wanted to share. So what I want to do right now, I want to actually open up with some Q&A because I know you've been really wanting to interface with the chat. So
no doubt,
now's the time. You know what I mean? So guys, he's here. You know, but let's try to keep it though within the topic. You know, we might be a little loose with it, but I really want to stay within the topic of Black and brown folk dealing with Christianity. So
yeah, definitely.
And while we're waiting for some questions, what were some things that were coming up? I mean, I know a lot of things are on hold now because of that Rona. You know what I mean? But actually, you know what? How are you dealing with the Rona over there in Georgia? Give us a quick update.
We're doing very similarly to everybody around most of the planet. So Georgia, I don't think is officially on lockdown, but Atlanta, I think is. And if not all the way, it's definitely doing the social distancing, just like a lot of the other cities and places are. Most of the restaurants are closed. Most of the, public places are closed. And so me and my family, we've been primarily together. I got a son that's off in college, but he's taking online classes only. So he's decided to stay and finish up. This is his last semester, so he just wants to get out of there. And so yeah, it's very similar to what a lot of people are facing everywhere. And I'm a big proponent of trying to stay away from people right now, trying to let this thing, end, because
Right.
I'm losing money. I'm assuming every viewer here is losing money, and we need to try to get back to things being, halfway normal.
Yeah,
So,
being an artist right now it's crippling right now, because you really need to be out there hitting those stages, So,
bro, I want to, I really want to, and we had tours lined up, and all of this, our dates are canceled up until I think July. So we had numerous dates lined up. All of that's canceled. I have a EP release, a solo EP release called Expansion. I'm giving a shout out. You shouted out your T-shirts, so I want to shout out Expansion.
Do it.
My solo record Expansion is an EP, and I'm working on a new Arrested Development record right now. So, there's a lot of great music that I want to get out to you guys, and all of that has been put on hold. I run a couple businesses. One of the other businesses I have is an art school called Victory Spot, and we teach young people and older people the arts, and that's on hold right now. And then we got a corn roasting business. I think I shared that with you. Did I tell you that?
Yes.
So I got a corn roasting business, and our biggest months are like the late part of June and the early part of July. And all of that has been postponed until September. So basically, money is
wow, that's crazy.
It's all good, but it's it's going to be all right, but it's tough, right?
Right. So we got a couple of questions here. Yeah, so Carmel says, have you heard about the so-called slave Bible?
Maybe tell me or if you know what she's saying, what she's referring to by the slave Bible, because I've seen
There was a Bible that was given to, I think, mostly some of the Caribbean islands to give to slaves, and it was a heavily redacted Bible.
Okay.
Like all the passages that talks about freedom and redemption, emancipation were gone. Like the entire book of Revelation, gone. And I think there's a copy that's being shown right now at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. So,
okay. No, I haven't heard of it per se. If you look at any of my documentaries, in particular, The Nigga Factory, you'll see that there is no extent that people who have a perverted view of the world will go to. There's no extent that they'll go to, that they won't go to, in order to pervert messages of freedom and self-dignity. They will go to any extent. So it doesn't surprise me that there's such a Bible, but the Bible itself, the actual Bible, makes it very clear that these people who do this will have a very severe punishment by God himself. And that part, to me, inspires my love for God, in the fact that he hasn't left out the fact that he will punish people who are doing these types of things.
Right. Absolutely. We got another question here from Joshua. It seems as though there is a great nuance of both lies and truth that can be found in both Black conscious camp and the Christian faith. True. Well, again, we got to define terms, right? We're talking about Christian, right? Are you saying that there's lies within being like the Messiah? Or are you talking about people who have laid claim to the term Christian? And now, if you're talking about people who have used the term Christian to do craziness, yeah, I 100% agree.
And also, what I would say is that, my brother Joshua, what that to me proves is that human nature is capable of lies and truth within whatever they proclaim. So whether it's Black consciousness, whether it's Christianity or Islam or whatever situation people may claim to be, those same people can be capable of both lies and truth, hypocrisy and sincerity. However, the scriptures, and that's what I keep going back to, the scriptures our our measurement to determine when someone is off kilter or not doing what is supposed to be done according to what God's will is. So that's what I tend to go back to a lot, is what does the scriptures actually say? But that's not just for people who are perverting things, but that's for my own marriage. That's for my understanding of what to do with my children. That's my understanding of what to do with a friendship. You know, I go back to the scriptures for a measurement, even on those things. Okay, how should I address this? So I think the scriptures are very full of use and useful for training and teaching righteousness as a human being. So I think that that's why I keep going back to the actual scriptures as opposed to what people say. Because even people who profess to be Christians and mean well can also be deceiving, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and depending on what part they are in their journey. So, you know, people are interesting. I love us, but we're all very complex and interesting human beings. And so I go back to the scriptures a lot.
Amen. A good friend of mine, Brian Leander, wants to know, how should a black or brown Christian challenge and inform a culturally biased gospel in their church?
Brother, you could help me with that. I think we're both striving to, right? Because I'll be honest with you, not only is it prevalent in white churches, it is culturally biased presence in black churches and in Asian churches and in, you know, various, you know, Asian churches, Korean churches. You know, I've been around the world and I see these biases because these biases are taught outside of the church in the world in such a prevalent manner that it seeps into the church like air. And before you know it, many churches with good intent or bad intent can have very culturally biased gospels. And so it is something that Brother Brian Leander, we all have to do our part in striving to bring an authenticity to Christianity again.
And to let my man Brian, so the church that I'm a part of now in Manhattan, because Brian actually was a part of the sister church in Brooklyn for many years. So that's how I got to know him. And in Manhattan, you know, I've definitely addressed the issues of white supremacy on stage, and speech has heard me speak about that, like really call out the white members on their you know their privilege. Like I've actually done that, and the church actually has a committee to help with, you know, because the great thing about our church is also a great challenge, and it's multiculturalism, right? So which is great, we want that, but that everybody brings their own cultural baggage with them, unfortunately, right? Culture can be great and can be a hindrance at the same time. So I can tell you firsthand, because I'm part of the committee, that we are trying to, you know, make some moves to rectify that. It's slow process, but I could say as a witness, it's actually happening. So,
you know what I think is so important.
Yeah, bro.
What I think is so important is making sure that there is people conscious enough and equipped enough, and as the Bible says, prepared to answer enough to be able to help fellow Christians correct their improper behavior towards culture and their biases about culture, help to change that. So talks like we're having now, and I know there's some brothers that you've been telling me about a lot, and I plan to get to know them a lot better, who are apologists, urban apologists, that even know way more than it seems like me and you, right? So these brothers and sisters, I'm sure too, have so much that they can teach us too, so we can become more knowledgeable and then be on the front lines in our particular communities to help change the narrative.
Absolutely. So Mr. Baker here says, what intrigues me is why these slave masters who created and gave the information in a slave Bible to their slaves, how they would think that the God of truth would not hold them accountable. Well, an even better question is, did they even believe in God to begin with?
Exactly.
Because obviously they didn't. They try to use it as some kind of control mechanism, and boy, did it backfire.
I agree with you 100%. And also, you know, the Bible is packed with examples of people that profess to love God, and Jesus himself says that I don't know you. Like, we have not had a real relationship. And so in the Gospels, Jesus talks about, to me, one of the more scary scriptures in the Bible, where it says, many people will come up to me and say, Lord, Lord, I did this, I did that, I performed these miracles and did that. And Jesus will look at them plainly and he'll say, I don't know you. You were worshiping something else. You weren't worshiping me. And so there are slave masters who are in that very position at the day of judgment. And it's something I think should help all of us to be sober as to what are we actually believing. And as we said earlier in this conversation, what is our sincerity with understanding the depths of things and not just the surface level?
Hey, amen. Mr. Reginald Wells wants to know, what do we do in teaching our young people in our communities more effectively and learning their history in Christianity?
Yeah, I personally think these types of conversations, which can come off to some as purely intellectual, they're not just intellectual to me. To me, they're substantive. And that's important. I think more substance needs to be taught to the young youth about Christianity. We're living in a particular era in a generation that their experiences with Christianity is more perverted than possibly any other time in recent history. So substance and having good substantive content for our young people to understand Christianity, I think is so important. And I think they'll be just as excited and fired up as any other previous generations have been when they see the authenticity and the trueness of what it's supposed to be.
Right. We should not be scared to teach the young the whole Bible, because they want to know. They actually want to know. They don't want to just have faith and you'll be okay. Those days is done. Like, they need to know. We live in the information age, and unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation that gets funneled to them at lightning speed. So that's why we have such a thing as urban apologetics, to defend against that and to actually teach and give answers to the questions that they have.
I agree, because people do have legitimate questions. Like,
absolutely.
I don't diss their questions whatsoever. In fact, when I was their age, and now I'm speaking of 21, 20, one of the hit songs that I wrote was a song called Fishing for Religion, in which I talk about some of the questions I had about the church at that time. And we've got to be able to answer those questions with sincerity and facts.
Well, speaking about questions about the church, it's about to get a little real right now, Speech. So Beatrice Wells wants to know, in one of Speech's previous videos on his channel, he mentioned the tension he experienced with his church. In the current political climate. Has that tension improved? All right, here we go.
It hasn't for me. Beatrice, thank you for asking. As I said in that video, I'm planning to do a documentary called The Cross is Burning. And I think I told you about that, my brother, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And me and you obviously have been talking about doing a separate. So we have a few plans in the works. And I think by 2020, we'll accomplish all of these two plans that we've talked about. Beatrice, basically, this has been a journey for me. I'm rapping about it in one of my new songs that's going to come out of the new Arrested Development EP. It's been a journey for me, and it's been a little different than my brother there in New York, where he's found this church home. He's doing good. He was really disgruntled for a while, as me and you have talked, and you found a place where there's some sisters that have embraced you. They are, y'all are able to communicate, and you're able to have some victories in this plight. Down here at this point right now, I've not been able to find that. And so my queen and I and my family are still looking for that medium where, we're able to express our faith in the way that we need to in order to feel whole. So we're looking for that right now. And if you have suggestions, hit me up on my YouTube channel, hit me up on my website, brotherspeech.com. I'm open to understanding what possibilities may be up there, but I appreciate your question. So that tension is still there. And I will say that the South it's a little bit of a different animal when it comes to race. I live in the heart of Trump country. There's a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of history and cultural bias that's going on down here that may be more extreme than even in the north where you're living, bro. So yeah,
Right.
so we're
Well,
still working.
it's just as bad as that we're better at covering it up over here in
There
the
you go.
East.
I feel you on that.
They're just more slicker with it. That's all.
I feel you.
I'm sure they're
I feel
more
you.
brazen with it where you're at. But over here, New York State has the most segregated school system in America, actually.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
great.
how. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's great. That's a great point you made, though. I agree with you. You know, it tended to be that way historically too. Like,
Right.
it was the same type of racism, just more brazen down here.
Yeah.
And
New York fronts like they're progressive, but on the low,
Right.
low. You know what I mean?
Right.
But speaking of your channel, my man Built for Speech did ask for your YouTube channel. Can you put your link in the chat, and whatever other links you want to send, please feel free to put in the chat, Speech, so people can keep up with you, your Twitter, your Facebook, whatever.
I hope this works. So let me try this right now. I'm going to try to throw something up there and see if this works, y'all, brothers and sisters. Sure. I gave you a real simple one. So what it is, I put there. Let me not do that. brotherspeech.com. Let's see if this works. No, it's the same thing. I didn't put a space in there. It says, I think .com. It may be a space. If there is a space, obviously that's not right. .com is where
put your Twitter, put your Gram, put everything.
Well, that's what I like about my website. So go to there and you can follow my.
Oh, it has all that already in. Right.
Exactly. Right. It's like my Twitter, my IG, my YouTube page, and please, y'all, subscribe to my YouTube page. I'm somewhere in the 40,000s of followers, somewhere in there, and subscribers. I would like all of y'all that's listening tonight to do the same. And me and this brother is going to do way more work. So Fredo and I are going to be doing so much to BK Apologist, and I are doing more work together. We've done one other post that I have on my page right now, and another post that's on his page that y'all can check out. We talked about some of these things before, and we're going to be digging deep into whether Christianity originated in Egypt and Egyptology, and if that's just a ripoff of Egyptology. We're going to be talking about a lot of the things that many of you probably are hearing. And so, you know, definitely subscribe, tap the notify button, because I'm going to be hitting you with some new stuff. So, yeah, appreciate that. brotherspeech.com.
Here's another by Black Atheist. Is there such a thing as a true Christian? Meaning there are thousands of denominations of Christianity who defines themselves in different ways. You want to tackle it first, or you want me to go first?
I think that there definitely is such thing as a true Christian. It doesn't mean that they're always right. It doesn't mean that they are incapable of sin. So I just want to make that clear. But yes, there are people that are striving to uplift, uphold, and follow the scriptures and the Bible and God and Jesus Christ as best they know how. And those people have, in my opinion, been very, very good people to be around and good people to have in your life. Most of the people that I know that profess to be true Christians, that are really striving to live by the word of God, very trustworthy people. Some of the people that work for me that I trust with my bank account are disciples of Jesus, meaning actual followers of Jesus. Right. I probably wouldn't trust most people like that. So yes, to answer your question, in a very real way, there are people that are sincere, that are true, and you'll be able to know who they are by their fruit. What I mean by fruit is how they live their lives. You'll be able to see it by the fruit of their children, the fruit of if they're married, their marriage, the fruit of their actions out in society. You'll learn if they're really true by just watching, checking them out, doing a little research. So yeah, there's such thing.
Right. And yeah, again, if you saw earlier in the program, you know, we define what Christianity is. It's the state of being like Messiah. So anybody who's making an honest effort to be within a state of being like Messiah, well, that person is a Christian. Now, are you going to see them sin all the time? But you can clearly see when someone's actually making an effort to be like the Messiah. So anybody who claims to have the title and like what Speech said when he quoted, you will know them by their fruits.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know people snitch on themselves all the time.
Yeah.
If you really pay attention, people will let you know who they really are, regardless of what they say they are.
Yeah.
Right? As the tired adage goes, actions speak louder than words, right? So
Yep.
But let me address this question here. You might not be too privy about this Speech, but I want to address this. Why is there so much tension and misunderstanding between the UA, that's Urban Apologetics for short, and HI, which is the Hebrew Israelites, which have been labeled moderates anyway, communities that when both claim Christ as king? Well, yeah, I think there is misunderstanding, and obviously there is tension. Well, the only way we can resolve that is through actually having dialogue. Baker, you know me, you know how I get down. I don't do the mudslinging. I don't do the ad hominems. Anybody want to sit down with me and we could talk? Now we might end up still disagreeing, but we could do it peacefully and with love.
Respectfully. Yeah.
And I always say I got love for my Hebrews. I got mad love for you guys. And it's never about beating you or winning an argument. It's about how can we both follow the Most High according to how He wants us to do. I
agree.
So any tension, well, it's more of contention with maybe a misunderstanding of each other's theology, I would put. So I'm open to dialogue, and I don't do the mudslinging. I don't do the back and forth. Baker, if you want to chop it up, I'm open to it. You can inbox me and we could talk. You know what I mean? Because that's what it's about.
Can I add something to that?
Go for it.
Brother, I studied with the Hebrew Israelites early in my life, and I enjoyed those studies deeply. I enjoyed the community. I enjoyed the food. They had the soul vegetarian restaurant here in Atlanta. And I just want to say, one of my best friends ended up living in Jerusalem or in Israel with the Hebrew Israelites.
With Benami's group? Benami's group?
Benami's group, yeah.
Right.
And I will say that the way I see it is that anyone who has a sincere and humble heart towards God, then I don't have to be right and they don't have to be right. It's a matter of what's actually right.
Right.
God says in the scriptures that let all men be wrong and I be true, meaning God,
right?
Not me. So let all men be wrong, whether Hebrew Israelites or professed Christians or whatever. And what I like about that scripture is it implies that if we have more humility as human beings, and I like that word, humility, human beings. Right. If we have humility, then I think we'll have a much better success rate at communicating with one another without tearing each other down. And I see that in the conscious community too, not just in the sort of Christian sects and different visions of Christianity, but I see it in the conscious community. And it, to me personally, it saddens me when somebody has made the decision to apply energy, and especially a lot of energy, towards activism or freedom, or in our case that we're talking about, spirituality and humility towards God. I respect that person already, like right off the bat. It doesn't mean that I necessarily agree, but I respect them, because there's so many paths that any one of us can take, that if someone has decided to take a spiritual path, especially for pure reasons, man, I already, I give you love already. And if you're striving to be as humble as possible, and if I am, then when we have conversations, it doesn't have to be who's right, and we don't have to tear each other down.
Right.
We could disagree, like my brother just said, and we could still have a respectful conversation without demeaning each other.
Right. I mean, and I've said this a billion times, but I'll say it again. Like, the issue for Black and brown folk is the same existential problem all humans have, and that is, there's two questions we want to ask, and that's, who am I and what is my purpose?
Yes.
Right? But for melanated people, those questions resonate a little bit deeper, because what has happened to many of us who have been either kidnapped or in my case, my people were enslaved in their own island.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and me being Puerto Rican, I'm a mixture of Taino, African, and Spaniard.
Right.
So the whole racial, I am a walking racial conflict. I am the oppressed and the oppressor is in my DNA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My last name is the name of the slave master from Valencia, Spain, Valentin. You know what I mean? It's like, so I get it, you know? So it resonates, like, who am I? But the Bible gives us the ultimate answer to that. You know, even if you don't know what part of Africa or what culture or what tribe, though those things are important and we can take pride in those things. So I'm definitely proud to be Puerto Rican, 100%. You know what I mean? But what I'm most proud of is that I've been made an imager of God.
Yeah.
I am the Imago Dei. You know, I am the Salem, as it says in the Hebrew. I am a representative of the Most High. I'm supposed to reflect Him. No other identity that I have, whether it's me being a son or a husband, you know, a member of a church, all those is great. The best identity and most important one is me being an imager of God. And because of that, I have intrinsic worth. And so does anyone else, even if they don't have the same belief as I have.
Totally agree.
Right. And that's why I have to treat everybody with the utmost respect, because when I look at Baker or I look at other people, whether they're Hebrews or not, I see an image of the Most High. So off the bat, there's love, there's respect, and there's intrinsic value. And I think if more of us actually acknowledge that, there won't be as much tension. Because whether you follow what I follow, you're still an imager of God. I got love for you off rip. And that's how I get there. So
I agree with you 100%. And let me say too, I saw somebody named Dashways 100. They said, hell to the no, we should be comedic.
Yes, I see that now.
So listen, I mean, I hear that said from people, and you know, I just want to say, for me personally, I imagine a day, and I believe it's realistic, that Black people will have taken control of our destiny as much as any race of people or any culture or nationality of people can take control of their own destiny. We will have that day again. And even in that day, I don't believe that all people of African descent will be of one religion. I don't see an example of that anywhere on the planet, no matter what nationality of people you're speaking of. And so when somebody like Dashways or anyone else says, we all need to be this or that, I think that it's fine to have an opinion, but I don't think that it's realistic for any people that have a free spirit and that are able to be truly human, for any of us to all be in one accord. The Bible never speaks about it. It never even suggests that there will be a point in human existence that everyone will have the exact same religion. Now, there's scriptures that talk about every knee will bow, but that doesn't suggest that everyone will come to faith to Christ. In fact, the scriptures that I read say the opposite, that very few will choose the path to Christ.
Right. And for Dashway, I'm sorry, bro. Yeah.
Which the Bible says is the true way to God. However, this idea that everyone will become anything, whatever you might pull out the hat, Kemetic, atheist, you know, Yoruba, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it's not a realistic thing. And when someone says, you know, do you know what Kemetic is? And you know that the Bible was stolen from there. We're going to talk about that in a coming episode. So we're very aware about that position that some people take, and we want to address it. So not to even debate it right now, but just more so to address,
right.
You know, where we're at with that thought process.
Yeah, well, funny enough, you know, we did it was called a Cyber City Urban Apologetic Conference that went on this weekend. It was a completely online. It was super dope, bro. It was super dope.
That's cool.
And I was able to present on Saturday evening, and my presentation was the problem with the conscious community. Mm-hmm. And I went specifically at Kemet, and I looked at the Kemetic worldview and whether or not it's attainable. So Dashways, go into my YouTube channel and look for that video and check it out, because I broke it down via worldview. I broke down the different attributes of a worldview, and I did a compare and contrast between the ancient Kemetic worldview and Christian worldview. We talked about epistemology, we talked about axiology, we talked about theology, and we did a compare and contrast. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that particular video.
Yeah, thanks, Dashways. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then my man Leander, for Black and brown people, the existential has been corrupted. Therefore, we are burdened with the search for an answer while disproving a lie. Yeah?
I agree with that.
100%.
I agree with that.
100%. Because it is good to know our past, even from a medical standpoint, because, you know, certain groups of people have certain genetics that are prone to certain ailments. So it's good
all the time. Yeah.
Right. So just for that alone, you should know your backstory, you know, but even if you don't know your backstory, you know, the greatness of Black people is the ability to create culture. That's why we love our ancestors so much, because they created culture and they innovated culture as they went. So even though we're not as tethered to the motherland as we might want to be, it doesn't stop us from being as creative as our ancestors that we love so much.
It's in the DNA.
It's there. So wherever you are, create that culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all right, cool. Thanks, Dashways. And what's this here? Okay, we have the Bible was stolen. All religions just borrow from other religions. No malicious intent. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
All right. So you're not open to discussion? That sounds like you pretty much made your mind there, Mr. Paul Scott.
My brother, what's up, man? It's good to see you on here, bro.
Oh, you know this gentleman?
Oh yeah, you quoted him earlier.
Oh, this is him. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, the Bible wasn't stolen. Okay, it just borrowed from over religions. Well, I mean, do you mean borrow as in plagiarism, or you just meant, you know, just the cultural admixture through time?
Yeah,
because I see that. I see that.
Me too. I see that too. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Paul Scott. I actually did quote you earlier today, so that's what's up.
Peace, brother.
Yes.
We gotta have another chill out time.
Yeah, I know. We're almost hitting 2 hours here.
No, but I was talking to even Paul, my brother. I know that we hung out in Carolina. I think it was in Carolina. I know where we were last time, but anyway, I want to see you again and connect and just chill out.
No doubt. But yeah, I mean, we definitely have to, you know, talk about that, because, you know, people will say that the Bible plagiarized. You know, we hear that all the time. What's funny, a few years ago, how me and Speech got to this part and that we're doing the work that we're doing now, it came from a Facebook post that Speech did like 2 years ago, I think.
I forget,
and he talked about, you know, the historicity of Jesus.
Yeah.
Yo, his whole timeline came for him. It was crazy.
Yeah,
so I jumped in there. I'm citing sources.
Yeah.
Yo, that thread went for like 3 days.
Yeah.
They were coming for Speech's neck just because he said Jesus existed. It was crazy.
Yeah. It's true.
You know, so
I remember that.
But yeah, man. So we've been here for a minute, bro. I mean, you've definitely been. Wow, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. A few more questions before Speech goes, guys, because he's a busy man. Even though, you know, that Rona got him locked up, you know, I'm sure there's a few things he would like to get done as well. So please, any last minute Q&As. Let's go.
Well, while you're looking for them, let me just say, I got 2 documentaries I want y'all to peep out. One is 16 Bars, where I go into a jail and I work with the inmates on music. Beautiful documentary. You can get to it on my website, brotherspeech.com. It's on your streaming services right now. It's called 16 Bars. And check that out while you're...
Didn't it just win an award?
Oh, we've won like about 10 awards now. Yeah.
Wow.
It's doing extremely well. And I want more people to see it because it sheds light on our prison system in America. It sheds light on the enslavement of drugs and what it's doing to our communities in a very personal way. It's not your average documentary about these issues. So I really want y'all to peep it out. And then also I have a mini documentary series called The Nigga Factory that's on my YouTube page. It's free. And I'd love for y'all to check that out. So go to brotherspeech.com while we're waiting for some questions. So
Yeah, no doubt. And bro, if you want to put those specific videos, those links into the chat, please feel free.
thank you.
Yeah. Here we go. My man Dashways. The Jesus story is the same of Amun-Ra, the sun god. And the sun god story predated Jesus by thousands of years. What do you think? Well, Amun-Ra, what's his theogony? What's his creation story? Real quick, tell me that. Tell me real quick, Dashways. What is Amun-Ra's creation story? What's his theogony? Because Genesis 1 has no theogony. There is no birth of God in Genesis. So right then and there, there's a difference, a big difference. Also, unlike most creation stories in Mesopotamia, there's no cosmic battle to create the world. Right? Baal, there is no Baal fighting Yam, the watery god of chaos. How does Genesis 1 begins? That God is hovering over the water. He's not fighting the water. The water is just an instrument that he uses to create. Oh, and by the way, he doesn't come from the water either, like most Egyptian deities. Right? He's not self-created. He was always here. So, good luck on that one.
Yeah.
Like I said, please watch my video, Dashways.
I really appreciate you saying that, brother, because, I have numerous musician friends that I know across the world that I love deeply. They're good friends of mine, and they will compare certain stories that are similar in some ways and not similar in other ways from ancient Egyptian texts and things of this nature. And I love what you just did there, because it is important, y'all, to go back and try to determine, is there just some similarities or is there actual ripoffs,
a plagiarism, right?
Because there are a lot of differences. And so even the whole idea that Jesus, he's the literal son and not the son of God, like a father-son relationship, but that he's the actual the son that heats and gives us light.
Right.
There's a lot of differences between what you'll hear about, and I forget this popular documentary, it came out a while ago, but
Zeitgeist.
Thank you. Yes. Zeitgeist, that documentary was really popular for quite a while, and I was talking to a lot of people during that time about some of these issues. Right. And just to encourage you that look at the scriptures yourself and then try to compare, because if you're just looking for the similarities, you probably can find similarities in pretty much any text compared to any other text. But if you look for what the differences are, then you start to see some huge and glaring differences in the text. And so I would encourage you to do that. Yeah.
Because, and I said this a billion times, but if you're going to claim plagiarism, first you have to show that plagiarism was an actual concept in the ancient Near East. And then two, you have to show that a Bible passage lays claim to a particular intellectual property and that some other nation says, no, we did that first. So you got to give me all that. So, and Dashways says, belief is not fact. Fact can be proven. Dashways, do you believe that? Do you believe that? You see what I did? We all believe stuff. We believe facts, right? Hopefully that's what we do. We believe. In fact, that's what the word faith really is. Faith isn't blind faith. Faith in the Koine Greek is pistis. It means to have a conviction based on what is fact. That's what real faith is, just so you know. So
yeah, I agree with you.
Anyone else besides Dashways? He wants to have a debate.
We appreciate you, man. Cool. Appreciate you.
Anybody else? Any? We're gonna take two more. Two more for my man's speech. Come on. Let's make it happen. Yeah, man. I can't wait till this dies down, man. I definitely want to get together and build with you on this project, bro. I feel like this can be, as you can see, it's needed.
I agree totally. I agree, and we gotta make that happen. Well, brother, I'm gonna sign out, but
okay.
Listen, I want to send love to you and your queen.
Thank you, sir.
Your family,
thank you.
Church there, Brooklyn, and
likewise.
You know what I'm saying, and I'll definitely send love from you to my fam and my peoples here.
Yes, sir.
And everybody that joined in tonight, thank you for joining in. It was just a good casual conversation, but I loved it. It's really
Yes, sir.
good.
Yes, sir.
Good energy, y'all.
Cool. All right, brother. Godspeed, and thank you for being here. And this is the BK Apologist signing off. Catch you on the flip side. Peace. All right, hold on.